Could you tell us a bit more about yourself and your art practice?
Okay, I'm James. I'm from Wales. When I was a kid, my big sister used to kind of draw little stories for me. And I've always drawn, but then like you've just got to work and you got to live and you got to pay for stuff. But then I was in Brussels, working in Brussels, and like it was super stressful. I was working on sanctions, like working for the European Union on sanctions. And I just felt I kind of had to paint. And also like I used to work with refugees, and there's like a lot of quite hard stuff doing that, working, and it was in conflict zones. And so I just started painting stuff in oils to do with themes to do with Africa, just stuff I wanted to do. And then I went to an art exhibition by an art group, like it's juried and everything in Brussels. And I kind of looked at stuff. I thought, hey, I could do this. So I joined them, started doing more and more and more. And then the themes have kind of evolved. So there's still a kind of, I don't know, some of the stuff behind me, equity, diversity, inclusion, refugees. But I mean, I'm nominally Catholic, but that just keeps me in order. But it's like spirituality, it's exploring why the universe is as it is. Is it all about love? Why do things go wrong? Is it so that you learn about love? You know, if somebody gets, my father died before I was born, yeah, and pretty tragic. And that's affected our family, but it's also made people make more effort to love each other and support each other, yeah. So spirituality is really important. I like an image it needs to tell a story. It might not be very straightforward, but it's got to be an image people can relate to, yeah. I'm not very commercial, but yeah. And so slowly I've done acrylics just because it's easy. I use egg tempera, which is really quite hard, but I like the process. Like when you do it properly, you take water, you take egg, you take the powder, you mix it. There's something about that. And then there's the beautiful colors. And then there's also like the history of people have been doing that pre-oil painting. It's just like, those are the basic materials people use for painting, yeah. And the art is maybe slightly more naive, but I kind of like that. I don't know if that's enough, but you can ask more questions.
Sounds good. How do you feel being involved in this kind of virtual residency?
So I exhibit quite a lot, and I often exhibit in group exhibitions. And what I really love is you go there and you see somebody's style and you think, that's not me. And then you see somebody else's style and what they're trying to do, and it's completely different. It could be abstract, it could be sculpture, it could be completely different. And you engage, you think, I love that. I don't know why I love it, but I want to know more about it. And then with this, you know, you get conflicts with people with different perspectives. So myself and Elena, you know, it's back a long time ago dealing with all that, and then going through time, you kind of move on, but it's always there. But then, you know, for Oksana, it's kind of pretty raw, yeah. It's happening now. And then the ideas that come out, you know, somebody using virtual reality, cartoons, it just really sparks you to think, okay, I can do this a different way. It may not work, but or I can work with somebody and I'll have my idea and they'll come back and say, yeah, nice idea, but I'll change that. And why don't you do that? Why don't you add in that? And that just really, really enriches it. And I've done residencies before, and you keep in touch with people, and it's nice to see how they progress and how their ideas progress. And yeah, you just kind of grow with it. Yeah. And people sending stuff on WhatsApp. Yeah, it was Elena sent something this morning, and I immediately sent it to a friend of mine who's a musician. Yeah, and it's like this, look at this is great. Yeah, so yeah, don't know if any of that made sense.
Well, yeah. And what are your thoughts about the team, and what will your project be about?
Okay, so when I sort of sent in my proposal, it was about painting this poem, and that's, especially if you use egg tempera, that's a really slow process. And also that's really difficult for the others to engage in. So, and that was really useful the last session, where it was kind of like, hey, you could do a film or present it and watch people's reactions. So what I'm going to do now, I sent you part of the poem. It's actually a much longer one, and it's got different things about conflict, refugees, local culture. And I sent it to my nephew, and he's a theater manager, stage manager, and he's like, okay, let's film this. So we're going to do that next week. And then we discussed about, do I say that to my children who are 16 and 14? And Joe was like, that's a bit much to kind of bounce them into. So I've got a friend who's of African origin. I might do it as a dialogue with him. Or if he's not available, I've got a friend who's a psychologist. We can watch psychology in action. And she's around next week, so I might film it with her. And then, as you kind of suggested, we could either a shortened version of the whole thing. We can kind of show it to the others and see their initial reactions. What do you want to send me initially? What's your initial thoughts on this? And then maybe, in a later session, we can kind of, okay, now you've reflected on this more. What would you change? Do you want to add in something longer? Do you want me to send you a little film back? Do you want to insert photos? Do you want to run AI across part of it and see what comes out? So yeah, that's kind of thinking, yeah.
Good.
Which you can refine now.
Well, I think we'll have plenty of time. Let's see a bit of it next week, and then we'll
Cool.
discuss it a bit further. And any future plans, projects, exhibitions, anything happening soon?
Cool. So in June, 20th of June is World Refugee Day. So I'm going to Rwanda to work with urban refugees and do some art projects with them, and then go to one of the big camps and do some art projects using like local materials, paint stuff. There's themes from World Refugee Day and the Day for the African Child. So we'll get them to think about that. So that's where all that stuff that's been sent about, neuroplasticity and how you engage with art is really interesting. And that's partly a reaction to what the UK government plans, which are just crazy. So but it's kind of to highlight what's happening in Rwanda. And then years ago, I kind of was partly involved with the genocide and the reaction to the genocide, and I had to screen refugees to see if they'd been involved in the genocide. So I've got a link to Rwanda. So we'll do that. And then in July, I'm going to Canada for Arts in the Park. And that's where they take 12 artists to a hut in the Rockies to just talk about art, do different art, and then have an exhibition. So I say it sounds like a plot for a murder, 12 people shut in a hut. Hopefully that won't happen. But again, that will just be sparking stuff off. And then, that's why I'm doing this. That's why I really like this sort of stuff. And then there'll be a follow-up exhibition. And then I'll be putting stuff into, there's a big painting here I'm doing for the Welsh art contemporary, kind of Welsh theme on mining. So yeah, I've got lots of plans. And this is great. It's great inspiration, yeah.
Well, sounds exciting, and good luck with everything. Thank you, James.